Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So, Hannah.
Natural.
This is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's super weird. So, Hannah, we're friends.
It's a strong start.
You've made docos.
So
what's your advice? What should I do?
Who's your audience? Like who you actually
queers,
talk?
non-queers.
That's
everyone.
That's quite the spectrum, isn't
yeah.
it?
Well, I don't know. Who's watching? That person.
I'm glad you're making it and I'm not, because there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot to it because it's been ignored for so long. And
history.
History.
It's 1727.
Well, it's not actually 1727. They didn't have cameras back then, obviously.
It's 1727. The Dutch ship Zeevik has been shipwrecked for 6 months when the captain makes a note in the margin of his journal. This will turn out to be the first European record of queer people on this continent.
Oh, this should be fun.
Clear sky, good weather. 2 persons, Adrian Spoor and Peter Engels, both boys, were found committing the abominable sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, the sorrowful and God-forsaken act, which, God forbid, shall afflict plagues over our people and island.
Plagues? This isn't fun at all.
We decided to place burning fuses between their fingers to bring them to a confession. They, being stubborn, did not confess. We resolved to place them, each apart, marooned on a separate island. In the evening, top-gallant winds, clear sky, good weather.
What an awful story. We don't know much more about those 2 boys. In the Zeevik story, they're not the main characters. But in most official histories, us queers generally aren't. We're just tiny, grim, cautionary tales in the margins, which is unfair. There's got to be more than that, you know, under the surface.
From those Dutch seamen to this gay sauna.
I reckon there's a lot going on in the margins. Oh, hi, Reese.
Hello.
A whole different history than what I was taught at school, which was just convicts and Anzacs and a tiny bit of First Nations history, which is...
Not your story to tell.
Yeah, good point.
I'll see you later.
Yeah, you will. I'm just saying, there's a whole lot that hasn't been covered. Someone should do a history documentary about it.
This is the queer history of Australia, as presented by Zoe Coombs
Oh, sorry, no, I didn't mean me. No, I'm a comedian, not a historian. I'm not qualified. The whole queer history of Australia, that's ridiculous.
We didn't peep through a keyhole at Poofters.
All of them.
Woman.
Homosexual.
Lesbian.
Pansexual.
Bisexual.
Stories and experiences.
Illegal.
Persecuted.
Poofter bashing.
The death penalty.
One of the most destructive forces in society.
They're under arrest. Standing up. Oppression and liberate rights.
Geordie is going to change things for the better.
Lesson humble from the past. Deeply sorry.
Every story has to start somewhere.
Does it? I see it more as a looping meta-narrative.
Yeah, good luck with that. Every story has to start somewhere.
And our story starts here. Hello, Mum. Hello, Dad.
And here. Or maybe here.
Illegal, legal. Illegal,
Or
legal.
maybe here.
Every story has to start somewhere.
Does it? I see it more as a looping meta-narrative.
Just start already.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So, Hannah.
Natural.
This is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's super weird. So, Hannah, we're friends.
It's a strong start.
You've made docos.
So
What's your advice? What should I do?
Who's your audience? Like who you actually
queers,
talk?
non-queers.
That's
everyone.
That's quite the spectrum, isn't
yeah.
it?
Well, I don't know. Who's watching? That person.
You got themes?
Yeah, we've got themes.
Yeah.
The episodes are...
Where does
Thematic.
this chat fit into your theme?
I think this chat... Well, I mean, I kind of see it all as quite non-linear, you know.
Bit wanky?
Yeah.
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 What a wanker.
Wanker. Yeah, I know, but I kind of see it like everything is happening all at once. But it's like I'm talking to you here right now, but at the same time... Hello, Mum. Hello, Dad. I'm here to talk to you for my queer documentary. But at the same time, I'm in Tasmania talking to Rodney Croom.
How is it? Say hi.
I will. Hannah says hi.
Oh, hi, Hannah.
Rodney says hi.
Oh, hi, Rodney. No.
But at the same time, hello, Mum. Hello, Dad. I'm here to talk to you for my queer documentary. All right, let's go inside and talk about how gay I am.
You are very gay.
I'm sure you're talking about it already. Oh, God. Where do we start? Do you want to look at birth? Do you want with my birth?
Oh, no.
Right, take it. Did you know then? Did you know I was gay then?
No.
No?
No. Did you know before I told you?
No.
And I never saw it as a big deal. All I was concerned about in you growing up was you being able to be you.
One moment, I think, a really clear signpost, which is this is 1990 and this is 1991. So to me, when I look back at these photos, I'm like, gay. Look at that gay child. Gay. So
Did
gay.
you have a sense then?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Did you really?
I knew I was different and I knew I didn't quite have words for it. I remember watching movies and like kissing and things, and I remember being like, do I want to be the girl or do I want to be kissing the girl?
Yeah.
Dirty Dancing.
Oh,
I was like, I think I want to be Patrick Swayze.
Who was the actress?
Jennifer Grey.
Jennifer Grey.
yeah.
Were you going to say Pamela Anderson?
No, I was going to say Pamela Gray.
Can you imagine how different the movie Dirty Dancing would be with Pamela Anderson?
awful.
Much sexier. Oh, so sexy. So yeah, I suppose what I want to know is how the hell do I make this documentary?
You'll need to do a lot of walking for the voiceover. So you need to be walking around looking at stuff.
Australia. What is it? Why is it? Where am I? Is this a convict prison? Okay, so let's get into it. Australia's a penal colony founded on stolen land and queer people...
You need to explain why you're doing the documentary first,
Really? Okay.
and see if you can do it in an organic way.
Yeah, of course.
Zoe, I've got a question to ask you. Why are you making this queer history show?
I guess it's about finding where you fit and where you've come from, because our stories kind of haven't really been told in a whole way because they're disconnected from each other. And by that I mean, when you look at a family tree, you can see, oh, well, that then led to that, then led to that. And all those people are connected and they know each other. Whereas when you look at something like queer history, it's often happening in isolation.
Each generation has its own story, but I'm not sure we necessarily talk to each other. In fact, I think we kind of get a bit shirty with each other.
Yeah, well, they're all disconnected, so there's no kind of linear cause and effect.
That's the queer experience, though, isn't it?
It is. You're not born into a queer family. You have to discover it on your own, and then you have to find where you fit in.
We all grew up not feeling right or not part of some mainstream.
You are an outsider within your own family.
And there was nobody out there to guide you or to even say, oh, you could be this or you could be that.
And so there's no one to educate you in how to survive the world, and you're very isolated.
I didn't know anyone like me. I felt like I was incredibly rare or like shouldn't exist.
This weird secret that I alone had.
I felt like I was the only one.
Am I legitimate? We've had to fight to claim a space in history, and that means that the narrative has been dominated by non-queer people.
So if you don't have a history, you don't have a past. And if you don't have a past to build on, it's very hard to see the future.
There's no such thing as a definitive history, is there?
I'm glad you're making it and I'm not, because there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot to it because it's been ignored for so long. And
History.
History. You go into a library?
Yeah, we're going to a library.
Yeah.
A library.
What are you doing in the library?
We're talking to Peter de Waal.
Oh, Peter.
Yeah, we're talking to Peter about sodomy.
Nothing to do with me.
No.
Peter is a lifelong gay activist and one half of the first gay male kiss on Australian TV.
Aw.
What we did was a serious exercise in television. We didn't peep through a keyhole at poofters. We tried to show what it meant to be a homosexual.
Peter has spent years hunting through 19th century records, looking for needle in a haystack evidence of queer existence in court cases.
Apparently, that's where most of us are.
What's the process when you're looking for these things?
Well, you look for the particular name of the person you have found in the police gazette.
And then you just manually go through and look for their...
Yes.
None of our experiences were being recorded by the historians at the time.
29th of October, 1867. One of my favourite dates.
Is it?
No.
Often it is only when people who are queer, passing or not, came into contact with police that we actually have some of that evidence.
This is so tedious.
It is.
One of the ways that we could get information was around the court records and the newspaper reports about court appearances, which inevitably were about men because it was homosexual acts between men that was criminalised and not homosexual acts between women.
Oh.
Whiz.
Oh my God, there's someone's finger on there.
Yeah.
Oh, Grafton, that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
Ellen McGregor arrived today. I don't know.
There it is.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah.
Let's turn this off.
See, this is from the police depositions.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's very detailed.
This is quite detailed.
Yeah. There are two police standing outside. They're probably suspicious of what's going to happen. They've seen these two men.
They are looking through the window. They can see them in there. They're both undressed. So they're spying on them.
Yes, they're peeping Toms. There's two cops.
This is a real juicy one. Moxham said to Smith, "Your breath will sicken me." And Smith said, "This is the right way for two to lay in bed." There was something further said by Smith to Moxham to this effect. Moxham said, "I can't." And Smith said, "You're too bloody large. Spit on it." Oh my God.
Very descriptive.
I guess they are very descriptive.
But also it makes me say they really were peeping Toms, weren't they? I mean, to go into that detail.
I feel like I'm intruding on their privacy now.
Yeah.
And cops don't stop snooping in the 1860s. It just keeps going and going. All these men, they don't know each other, but they're connected by this common thread.
One man was convicted and jailed for having sex with his partner in his own home.
But then, and the cops are here the whole time.
Yep.
And then it it keeps going. He said, "Wait till morning, you'll be too bloody religious in the morning." So they go for it again. And then the cops jump in and handcuff them and take them to the watch house.
Yep.
What happened to these guys? I feel like I'm in a spy movie.
Well, you are.
The landlady let the police go into the house, drill a hole in the roof, and the police waited in the roof above the man's bedroom and watched so that they could catch them having sex together and then arrested them. That's the extent of police harassment.
There it is, Edward Moxham convicted of an unnatural offence, his honour in ordering sentence of death.
To be recorded. I mean, it feels so strange that these people
sleep together.
And it ends up with this strange document being read by us.
So, yeah, there's many of those and all horrible.
Good news, Moxham actually avoided the noose in the end. Bad news, he is dead now, Farley.
But there are heaps and heaps of these, all the way back to the beginning of the colony. Unnatural offences, sodomy, buggery. I'm sensing a theme.
The abominable crime.
The death penalty.
Maximum penalty.
You're both in jail. Break the law.
Double the sentence for rape.
Gross indecency.
Unnatural acts between
The
men.
legal sexuality is unnatural.
Police record.
The 25-year jail term.
Unnatural offences.
I think this episode might be about the law. For hundreds of years, to be queer was to be criminal, at least for gay men. Now, lesbianism and messing with the gender boundary, while not always strictly illegal, were still punishable and policed. So, spoiler alert, homosexuality is eventually decriminalised. Takes forever, but it does happen. $1997? What took you so long, Tassie?
Tasmania was the last state to decriminalise homosexuality, with more severe penalties than anywhere else in the Western world. And the campaign to repeal those laws was really hard fought and bitter and divisive and difficult.
the debate in Tasmania, and that was only, particularly where I live, was only ever horrific.
You've got every right that I've got, but you do not have the right, and nor do I, to practice perversion.
The act of homosexuality is unacceptable in any society, let alone a civilised society.
I think it's time for us to stand up.
Ugh, that's a bit much, fellas. And where do these laws even come from?
At the time of invasion...
On day one of invasion...
We basically brought British laws across.
So the arrival of the First Fleet, the planting of the flag of England, meant that this land, inhabited for 60,000+ years, was now in the hands and possession of England. And included in that was the sodomy laws.
So before Arthur Phillip even comes here with the First Fleet, he's in communication with the British government. And in the course of that, he says, I would only want 2 offences to attract the death penalty. One is murder and one is sodomy.
Sodomy and murder.
And in relation to sodomy, he thought it would be best if we just convicted them, sent them to New Zealand.
Where the natives there will eat you.
So when we say sodomy laws, right, what are we talking about?
We're generally talking about the act of male homosexual sex.
Bum sex?
It was the act of homosexuality. So, bum sex.
Bum sex. Talking about the bum sex.
Oh, this is what I got into history documentary for. In all seriousness, we can't talk about these laws without going there. Sodomy laws, the Buggery Act, where does that story start, Take it away, disembodied voice.
The origins of British sodomy laws can be traced back...
Oh, this is a bit dry, isn't it? Hang on. Is that my voice? Yep, and here's a section I'm going to call A Brief History of British Bum Sex. To get to the bottom, wink, of this sodomy thing, let's go back in time. The British invented a lot of things. Spice Girls, sandwiches, passive-aggressive apologies.
I'm terribly sorry.
But they didn't invent sodomy. The Greeks can't take credit either, though they may have been the first to put it on their kitchenware.
I think it's very stimulating indeed.
But here's the rub, and tug, not everyone's a fan. By the year 395, sodomy is a sexual sin, taking its name from the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's not called Gomorrah-y because that is a mouthful, which is a whole other thing. But let's not get bogged down in semantics, we're talking about the law. In 1290, a survey of English laws mentioned sodomy in passing. But it's more than just bum sex, it includes sex with Turks, Muslims and Jews of either gender. Sorry, Mr. Sheffield. Turns out you're a sodomite.
I think that's a load of old codswell, myself.
1533, the Buggery Act. Henry VIII declares the death sentence for
the detestable and abominable vice of buggery committed with mankind or beast.
Well, it is a slippery slope. 1644, Edward Coke agrees buggery is
detestable and abominable sin among Christians not to be named.
Think you just named it, mate.
Ooh, bugger me.
1765, William Blackstone includes sodomy in his commentaries on the laws of England. As the world moves into the age of empires, England exports its ban on bum sex to the colonies. Thanks, guys. By contrast, the French decriminalised it in 1791.
Oh, foreigners.
This affects the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, meaning most countries colonised by other European powers don't inherit anti-gay laws.
Everybody talks about sex!
Nah, mostly the Brits. Today, of the over 60 countries that still criminalise consensual gay sex in private, the majority inherited those laws from Britain. Now that's what I call a bummer.
How we conceive gender and sexuality today is an import of colonisation. So the evidence that has been passed down orally, gives us a clear indication that Aboriginal sexualities were a thing. To unpack what that thing is very personal and I think very intimate for Aboriginal people. And it's intimate because it was stripped in such a violent way. Aboriginal forms of sexuality were eroded on this continent while colonial sexuality was evolving. There is evidence of practices of homosexuality, which anthropologists described as barbaric and disgusting and beastly. And that's the laws coming through of England in being used as a weapon to describe savages. And so talking about sexuality and gender identity became a closed practice that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people do still to this day.
Right. So what do you mean by that?
Well, there's contextual histories to the story that you can only really understand when you've lived it.
Yeah. No, I get that.
No, I don't know. You get it?
Yeah, I get that.
What I want to ask is, people like Anthony Mundine have said that gayness isn't in our culture, yet here we are, a couple of gays, I'm assuming, but it's a view, I guess, that is echoed elsewhere. I mean, I definitely heard it growing up.
I mean, this is...
Is it something you heard?
It is something that I heard, because this is the relationship that Aboriginal people have with religion because of colonisation. Colonialism brought religious missionaries to different parts of communities. It then told us about Adam and Eve, which I don't know if you know which tribe Adam and Eve from.
I think your mob. I think
we got the same mob.
I think you're a descendant. Yeah, I'm actually part Eve.
Part Eve. Oh, well, I'm part Steve.
On my dad's side. Yeah, I'm 1/16 Eve. This is all great. Yeah. This should stay in.
I mean, the relationship between those buggery laws or sodomy laws with religious imposition meant that Aboriginal people were taught to weed out kind of queerness. And so in addition to breeding out the black, we also bred out the queer.
I guess the takeaway here is that along with guns, syphilis, vaping, the British also imported their straight sexuality. Although, I guess, technically, vapes are imported from China. Anyway, I'm getting bogged down with the semantics, which is more of her thing.
Yep. You know, as much as the British hated sodomy, they kind of created the perfect environment for it to thrive, like a huge single-sex prison.
Yeah, I'll let you deal with that mess.
One of the joys, from a historian's point of view, of the convict system is that they kept close watch on everybody. So you get amazing reports. And because they're so closely monitored, we know more about the everyday life of sexually diverse people in Australia during that period than anywhere else in the world.
So what was going down? Who was going down? And who was getting gone down on? Turns out, everyone.
In 1837, the British government sets up an inquiry into how well the transportation project is going.
In short, not well, bitch. The inquiry declares the penal colony a failure, a morally corrupt system of abuse, basically slavery. But worse than that, these convicts/slaves are kissing/cuddling. With a male-to-female ratio of an open mic night in the 90s, sodomy and buggery are very common.
In fact, more common in Sydney than any part of the civilised world.
Go off, Sydney.
On Norfolk Island, it's reported that there are 150 male couples living in marriage-like arrangements.
Aww. In these, and I quote, cesspools of unheard of vices, they indulged in every filthy and unnatural propensity, unrestrained intercourse with each other, atrocities of the most shocking, odious character, things so demoniacal and unnatural, crimes that, dare I describe them, would make your blood to freeze and your hair to rise, erect in horror upon the pale flesh. Settle down, fellas. But nice work getting the word erect in there. We get the idea, right? Sodomy was as widespread as the legs of a... Nah, that joke's too cheap even for me. In short, the penal colony was a little too penal. Some people think the problem might be fixed by throwing women at it, but that doesn't work because it turns out we can be reprobates too.
Reports from Tasmania's female factories overflow with depraved and disgusting, unnatural intercourse, hammock jumping, nailing,
fingering,
pseudo-males,
dykes,
and even a flash mob.
No, not a terrible group dance embarrassing a woman into saying yes to a public marriage proposal in a food court, a lesbian convict gang. I'm going to say that again. Lesbian convict gang.
Known as a flash mob because of their flash fashion.
We're talking silk handkerchiefs, rings on the fingers, and very fancy buttons. The authorities try to punish and separate these deviants, but you can't keep a good homo down, unless you have her consent and a safe word. So were there riots? Yeah, there were riots. We've been revolting since the beginning.
Some historians suggest that the reports are exaggerated.
Which may be true.
You don't expect us to believe that cock and bull story?
But what we do know is fear of homosexuality is enough to end transportation. It stops in New South Wales in 1840 and in Van Diemen's Land in 1852. But the damage has been done. Australia has a rep.
The Sodom of the South Pacific.
Sodom of the South Pacific? I think they should put it on the tourism campaign. Where the bloody hell are you? Whoop, right behind me. But the early settlers aren't so jazzed about it. See, there's a real panic that convict homosexuality poses a threat to respectable family life and is corrupting society itself. It's a pretty profound bedrock of homophobia to build a nation on, and I think goes a long way in explaining the attitudes that are to follow.
In Australia,
the queer
kick them out.
Very unhappy people.
I reckon they're rats. They will be kicked to death.
Because it's just not right.
Homosexuality is not tolerated.
I wouldn't like my kids to see it either.
You dirty dog.
They might have had something go wrong with their genes when they were born. As long as they don't pinch my bum.
I don't like poofters.
I don't appreciate her lifestyle.
Family groups are outraged.
Unacceptable, filthy, dirty.
Rule number one, no poofters. The state, the church, the medical profession all combined to define homosexuality as illegal, improper, deviant and sick.
Societal attitudes towards gay men and lesbians were pretty uniformly hostile.
Theoretically, I was still a criminal and would remain a criminal every time I had sex with another man.
Everyone was underground to some extent, or in the closet to some extent.
I think then people really were scared.
There was the fear and might we get bashed? Might we get arrested?
You ought to have transsexual tattooed on your forehead so blokes like me aren't tricked into being poofters.
There was a lot of fear and there was a lot of bravado in response to the constraints that were put on people. Sorry, I get emotional about it.
Yeah.
It's very hard not to get emotional about it because when I was a young person, my life was criminalised.
Women were harassed by police as well. The fact that male sex was illegal just had a chilling effect on the whole community.
Lesbianism itself, or the act, was not technically ever criminal. Why is that?
You know, sex was seen as penetrative sex, and women were seen as sexually passive, or middle-class white women were seen as sexually passive.
Who are the women who are homosexual? These women shoppers? Probably none of them is, yet there's no way of knowing because you can't tell just by looking at a woman. So there's nothing new about female homosexuality, although it tends to arouse less comment than its male counterpart.
There was also this sense that if we criminalise something, it will bring it to the attention of women that might not have imagined it or seen it as possible.
I mean, you never heard the word lesbian. We just didn't know there would be other women in relationships with other women anywhere.
So women were able to fly under the radar more easily than men.
Flying under the radar? Were they ever? It's worth remembering that historically, heterosexual white historians physically cannot see lesbians. It's a physiological anomaly where two butch women on motorbikes can be kissing in front of them and they'll say, "Look at those poor spinsters."
So let's let this lesbian shine a lesbian light on some forgotten lesbians of our history. I think if you're lesbian, very lesbian, you might just spot a couple of roommates, like the very heterosexual Josephine Bedford and her buddy Dr. Lillian Cooper, Queensland's first lady doctor. These two inseparable pals were chums in their school days and lived together in what this article describes as the most interesting woman's nest in Brisbane. Woman's nest?
Now these lifelong friends share a single grave in Toowong Cemetery. Keep it up, ladies, you'll find husbands sooner or later.
Agnes Simmons and Geraldine Monet were so busy running their psychic bookstore and farm with a ban on male animals, they totally forgot to get boyfriends. Oops. And Murray Bjelke-Peterson, a sports-loving vegetarian who wrote romance novels about cross-dressing, split the rent with her buddy Sylvia Mills for over 30 years. Now, I don't actually have a photo of Sylvia, so I'm just going to use another historical lesbian. One of my headshots from 2003. And then there's Caroline Newcomb and Anne Drysdale. No one took a photo of Anne either.
These two lady squatters, that's right, lady squatters, lived together and run a farming empire in the 1800s. Anne Drysdale's born in 1792 in Scotland. Caroline Newcomb's born in 1812 in England. The two meet in Geelong in 1840. I don't know exactly how, but I assume they see each other through a fish tank at a party. Anne had just secured 10,000 gorgeous acres on the Bellarine Peninsula. Now, this land wasn't empty, it was stolen from the Wadawurrung people to make way for farmland. When Anne invites Caroline to join her as partner in her giant new stolen farm, Caroline hornily accepts. Despite each woman having 0 husbands at the time, their enterprise is a success. They live together, work together, build a home together. And when Anne dies in 1853, Caroline has a gold brooch made of both their hair woven together. When Caroline dies 21 years later, she's buried with Anne.
hair brooches, shared graves, classic things many straight women do. But even though these stories seem queer, there's no actual evidence of intimacy. Sure, they lived together, loved each other, but we didn't actually see them having sex, so we'll just never know.
All we have are things like the Lady Squatter's diaries, where Anne writes, "Miss Newcomb is my partner, I hope for life." But nothing conclusive.
Of the diary's 5 volumes, only 4 remain. The last disappeared in what some say are mysterious circumstances, so I can only assume that missing volume is the one with all the bits about scissoring and fisting. So it seems like we only officially exist if the cops catch us. So where do we find queer women and trans people if we're not criminalised?
Being lesbian or being trans wasn't explicitly criminalised, but in practice, those groups of people did often have, contact with the police.
People that transitioned and lived and worked as men, and women who transgressed, particularly gender boundaries, certainly were harassed by police, ordered to dress in women's clothing, or they would be charged with offensive behaviour.
The kind of legal tool that was used often was state vagrancy laws. So these allowed the police to arrest people seen as being vagrants. And for a lot of the early 20th century in Australia, they were used to arrest people who were seen to be cross-dressing or engaged in kind of, deviant gender expression.
So it's a bit complicated, but as far as I can understand, the police used these obtuse laws like vagrancy in creative ways so they could arrest anyone who just didn't fit in. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
Even though cross-dressing itself wasn't technically illegal.
Except in one state.
Is it Tasmania?
Yep.
Tassie!
Up until 2000, it was illegal for a male to be dressed in female attire between sunset and sunrise. And it wasn't like an antiquated law that had never been used as late as 1999, I think it was. There was a trans woman who was arrested under that legislation.
So oh my God, just for being out in the street?
For being out, yeah. It kind of put me off the idea of transitioning for quite a long time because I thought, yeah, that's all I would really need is to get arrested for just being myself.
Trans rights have come a long way thanks to the work of people like the iconic activist Roberta Perkins, who I assume you've heard of.
What? You haven't? It's almost like queer history's been erased and kept in the margins. Someone should do a history documentary about...
Is this that looping meta-narrative you were talking about?
I just think Roberta Perkins is a phenomenal woman. She was a trans woman. She was a scholar. She was a researcher and was an absolute pioneer and legend in trans history, but also sex worker history in this country.
For years, Roberta Perkins has been the spokesperson of Sydney's working girls, defending their presence and fighting for their rights.
Roberta was really key to the campaign which led to the decriminalisation of sex work in New South Wales. Queer and trans people have faced so much prejudice and stigma and have often found more conventional employment unavailable. Sex work has just been a mean to survive.
In 1863, Ellen Maguire, a Fitzroy sex worker, is arrested for vagrancy. When she's revealed as John Wilson, she's given the death penalty for sodomy. The death penalty isn't carried out, but she does die in prison. Cut to 1982, and everything is better. Nothing has changed. 2 trans sex workers are arrested in Darlinghurst and charged as men.
Sex work is legal, but sex between men is a crime. So Phyllis and Vicky's trial, which is lost in 1982 but appealed and won in 1988, becomes a groundbreaking test case for legal gender recognition. And sparks the first known trans rights demonstration in Australia, organised by the iconic activist Roberta Perkins, who I assume you've heard of.
What? You haven't? It's almost like queer history's been erased and kept in the margins. Someone should do a history documentary about... While queers can and have been arrested for being queer, we can also be arrested for other things because queers can do anything. There are more queer criminals than you can point a true crime podcast at. Sandra Wilson, the drug grannies, Fenian Marks, the lesbian vampire killer, and one of the most fascinating stories, that of Harry Crawford.
In 1912, Harry Crawford falls in love and marries Annie Burkett in 1913. They run a confectionery store in Balmain, sell sweeties, and live happily ever after. The end.
Is what you might say if Harry hadn't gone to jail for murdering Annie after it was discovered he'd been born Eugenia Fellini.
The confectionery bit is true, though.
Queer, Tate.
Okay, so Harry is born Eugenia in 1875 in Italy. He's raised in New Zealand, then ends up in Balmain after escaping a forced marriage, leaving behind 17 siblings, his father, mother and her absolutely wrecked pelvic floor. Eugenia becomes Eugene, and Eugene becomes a cabin boy, which sounds fun, but isn't. Eugene becomes Harry, then has a nice time with Annie until 1917 when a gossipy neighbour lets slip a rumour about Harry's genitals, which is rude, if nothing else.
So Annie confronts Harry.
And right at that moment, according to Harry's statement, she falls backwards and hits her head on a rock.
Harry burns her body and hides it in shrubland.
Which, yes, is a pretty sus thing to do to someone who's just had an accidental fall. Harry lies that she's run off and everyone believes him, except for Annie's son, who annoyingly for me, is also called Harry. Harry remarries while Harry files a missing persons report.
Where were we? Yes.
Eventually in 1920, the cops search Harry.
Not the son's house and find a suitcase containing 3 marriage certificates, an unlicensed revolver, and what the report describes as an article, but which my online shopping cart describes as a dildo. Made of wood, fabric and leather, it's enough to raise alarm. Harry is arrested and the press go berserk. Not so much about the murder, but the whole gender thing.
The prosecution used Harry's passing as a man as evidence of his duplicitous character, and it works. He's found guilty, sentenced to death, and sent to Long Bay Jail.
Now, the sentence is later commuted and he's released in 1931, but on the condition he live as a woman, which is similar to the original Little Mermaid plot, where she gets to be a human, but every step feels like she's walking on knives. Harry never gives any explanation as to why he lived life as a man. Attraction to women, gender identity, or just escaping a wrecked pelvic floor.
We'll just never know.
But what I do know is, this queer history is not all rainbows. And I wonder how many law-abiding queers there were who just never became a headline.
We run into a nest of homosexuals.
Most people say, when talking about homosexuality, that it is a threat to society.
There's a self-fulfilling prophecy here. Queer people are criminalised, invisible, and only seen when we commit crimes, so we come to be viewed as inherently criminal, justifying further criminalisation. It's a queer crime snake eating its queer crime tail, and this really comes to a head, or a tail, in the 1950s.
In the 1950s, in Australia, we have this kind of era of the threats to Australia, the threat to white Australia, the threat of communists, the threat of homosexuals.
Communism was seen as the biggest threat to the viability of the West.
Policing increased, the number of people charged increased.
And it was all around security. It was all around the basis that same-sex attracted men are highly vulnerable to being blackmailed by Russian spies, and they will tell spies our state secrets.
What's the logic of that? Why would...
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
There was a police commissioner here in New South Wales, Colin Delaney.
At one point, there was statements by him to the effect that the greatest menace to Australian society were homosexual men. That set off a whole era of police monitoring and persecution of same-sex attracted men.
Should homosexuals have to meet furtively at night in places like this because of the existing law?
Let's talk about beats.
Beats.
Beats. They are all around us.
Yes.
The earliest Australian record of a gay beat I could find dates to 1830, when the Sydney Gazette reports the Domain is becoming a resort for very improper characters. Scandalous.
Many gays cruise certain public lavatories for instant, anonymous sex. Some gays have had as many as 2,000 encounters in lavatories.
There is not a deserted beach anywhere in this country that doesn't have an ugly red brick structure, which is demanding to be used.
I didn't know they had names.
Often they did. You know, a lot of places, often it was like a little comical name. There was one that was on Swanston Street. That was called the Lobster Pot.
The favourite one was at Melbourne General Cemetery, which was called Stiffies.
In Darwin, in my day, there was a beat called the Chapel by the Sea, and it was known by that name because there was a very prominent cleric who was always at the beat on his knees giving people blessings.
The fact that beats have names is a sign of them being social places for people.
Inside the beat, a dimensionality exists because we don't really care about race or culture or politic. You were there to get off.
Someone had the bright idea of, well, why don't we have a women's beat? We all went out at night and started walking around the Edinburgh Gardens, pretending at least that we were on a beat and how we might act and so forth and so on. But it didn't work because we all knew each other.
The significance public toilets have to many gays in the early stages of coming out, we should claim these places as sacred sites.
The police knew that beats existed. They could go out into the parks and the public toilets and entice men into propositioning them. And that's all they had to do. And they do this partly by training up young, attractive officers.
They would simulate and entice you, and then once there was some response, they would grab you.
And that goes on quite extensively in the 50s into the 60s and 70s.
During this era, beats are patrolled, parties are raided, and there's new anti-homosexual legislation. Coomber Jail is reconfigured as the only homosexual prison in the world. Cool. Even if you didn't end up in Coomber, an arrest carried such stigma that it was often life-destroying.
There were no laws around revealing people's identities. So if you were arrested by the police, your name would be guaranteed to appear in the paper.
You know, in a sense, the tabloid could do the policing and the shame and the vilification and the stigmatising.
There were no anti-discrimination laws. People would lose their jobs. People would lose their homes.
That would have been completely devastating.
Your employers would know, your family would know, your landlord would know.
You know, everyone would know.
In the back of your mind was that fear, but one overtook the other. You would take the risk because you would get this amazing, wonderful thing.
The scene was definitely underground, and the complete courage of people, even in the face of police brutality and the adverse consequences of being named and shamed publicly, people, I think, were determined to continue to live authentic lives. You could have a society that said you're not allowed to live your lives, and people were going, well, actually, I've got a life to live.
Is it easy to live a gay life in Sydney? It's not easy, but it's fun.
Mardi Gras is the founding myth.
Oh, that's the most fabulous flag I've ever seen.
It's the founding myth in the sense that large numbers of people, both queer and non-queer, think this is how the queer movement started. And it's a myth in the sense that, of course, that's not how the queer movement started.
We really started in 1969.
That year, Australia's first gay rights organisation, the Daughters of Bilitis, forms in Melbourne, which is like a smaller, colder Sydney without the gorgeous beaches. The same year in Canberra, which is like Melbourne but made of circles, the Homosexual Law Reform Society is established. In 1970, CAMP is formed, the Campaign Against Moral Persecution. The first public meeting is in 1971, and shortly after, Australia's first gay rights demonstration happens. By the end of the year, there are branches all over the country, plus more gay rights organisations, coalitions with Women's Lib, with First Nations activists. There are radical lesbians, gay liberation. Uh-oh, did someone say groundswell? Now I'm going to run you through every group and individual involved in the queer movement. Of course I'm not. That'd be ridiculous. Look at how many there are.
Queerstralia is finding its voice.
And she sounds great.
Gay liberation saw itself as part of a radical reshaping of society.
It was really part of a wider global wave of protest movements. The women's movement, gay liberation, black power, the peace movement, the green movement. There was a lot of marching back then.
The women's rallies, marches, Pride days.
And the most effective thing, political thing that people could do was to come out.
We were all in the closet, right? But this was the moment we could, you know, speak out and just say, here we are, homosexuals, yeah.
It was okay to be different. It was okay to be a lesbian. For me, it was okay to be who I really was, that I always was.
We'd hold hands, we'd kiss, we'd make ourselves very visible.
As more people came out, the absurdity of the legal restrictions became more and more obvious.
The gay community are pushing for decriminalisation.
We're up against the ultra-conservative forces within the state parliament.
Complete equality. Homosexual. Homosexual.
No compromise from the Catholics, no quitting from the gays.
In 1972 comes a tragic but crucial turning point in the fight for decriminalisation of homosexuality, the death of Dr. George Duncan.
It was here, on the banks of the Torrens in central Adelaide, that Dr. Duncan met his death late at night on May the 10th.
That night, around 11 p.m, Dr. Duncan met another man at Adelaide's number 1 beat. They were attacked and thrown into the water. The other man, who could swim, managed to escape with a broken ankle. Duncan, who could not, drowned. Dr. George Duncan was 41 years old. He was a law lecturer at Adelaide University and was known to his friends as Ian. The following morning, police fished his body out of the river, and shortly after, when a TV crew arrived, they put his body back in the river and dragged it out again for the cameras.
Though never proven, suspicion quickly turned to police involvement. The investigative efforts were also criticised.
Dr. Duncan's death pointed up the plight of homosexuals in today's society, the problems and prejudices they face.
One Vice Squad officer later spoke of common police tactics like luring homosexuals out of the toilets and around the River Torrens to belt the fuck out of them, just flicking them in. That was a huge game. Don Dunstan, the Premier at the time, was a long-term critic of the South Australian Police and offered protection to anyone who came forward with information, but no one did. During the inquest, 3 Vice Squad members refused to answer questions and later resigned from the force. The coroner found that Duncan's death was due to violence on the part of persons unknown. The 3 officers were eventually charged with manslaughter, only 2 went to trial and were acquitted. Despite several re-examinations and claims of a cover-up, the case has never been solved and no one has been brought to justice. But with outrage over the death contributing to bipartisan support, on the 17th of September 1975, Don Dunstan's Labor government managed to pass the first laws in the country decriminalising homosexuality. I told you it would happen. Regardless of whether or not it was allegedly the cops, Duncan's death adds fuel to the fire of the emerging queer rights movement.
The first Mardi Gras was in 1978 as the anniversary of the Stonewall Rights. Our International Day of Gay Solidarity was Australia's contribution to those international celebrations.
We were young and we were passionate and we were going to change the world starting now.
Oxford Street in those days was like gay Mecca. We darted into quite a lot of bars and we would say, out of the bars, into the street.
It was just electric. We just linked arms, and I was probably in about the second row, and we marched through into El Alamein Fountain.
There was a whole cordon of police, paddy wagons. They let us in. As soon as we were there, they blocked us off, and that's when the bashing started.
The whole thing got badly out of control.
It was horrendous, awful. People were thrown into paddy wagons by their hair, dragged out again.
So myself and this girl, we just like hit the ground and we crawled underneath this car and I thought, we'll hide underneath the car.
There was tugs of war between police and demonstrators.
It was violent.
And they had their batons and they were just slamming into us.
And we just stayed terrified underneath that car.
The paddy wagons went all to Darlinghurst police station.
53 people arrested on Saturday night.
They were being bashed up. The worst screams, death screams, I call them. They're sort of, ingrained in my brain. So that part of the Mardi Gras was, I'd rather forget it, but I can't.
The consequences for people were really bad, like the Sydney Morning Herald printed everyone's full names and everyone's full addresses. All it did was make people really determined. People who weren't political became politicised.
It was the scale and the absolute vicious brutality of it, and it galvanised people.
We should perhaps thank the New South Wales Police for their stupidity and their brutality in providing this moment.
And there was a real upsurge of activism.
And people fought back. It's like, we have to be organised, we have to fight back.
My feeling is that anger is going to increase and we're going to see a much larger homosexual movement than we've seen so far in Australia.
Police very regularly attack gay people. This is not an isolated incident.
Police reinforcements were called in as the demonstrators grew more determined. Tempers flared on both sides.
Several policemen and demonstrators were injured and 53 people were arrested.
When we think about the first Mardi Gras here in Australia in 1978, we know that there were a couple of Aboriginal lesbians present. We also see, only a decade later, a float called an Aboriginal boat in which People such as Malcolm Cole, who dressed up as Captain Cook, were there to remind people that our two histories as queer and First Nations are entwined. The challenge that we have is that for Aboriginal people, you will be Aboriginal first. So you put your sexuality to the back. And that's not your fight. You know, the fight for equality is often seen through the lens of whiteness. And so Malcolm Cole was bringing history and bringing culture, and he was saying that we too are a part of this community, but we bring to it the complexities of what it means to be queer in Australia.
Just as we start to see blackfellas really being strong parts of the gay liberation movement, we also see the queer community absolutely smashed by HIV and AIDS.
It sent shockwaves through our communities.
Gay men are dying.
I hate them. I guess AIDS will look after them one day.
Practising a natural relation, they're spreading AIDS. After bashings is
A gay hate attack.
There's one, get him.
Doing murder for sport.
Gangs were systematically bashing gays and lesbians. Go and grab one and bash him, give him a few stitches.
He said the only good poofter is a dead poofter.
Killers are literally getting away with murder.
Police are investigating. There is an inherent bias.
While times have changed, injustices remain.
There had already been years of gay bashing. But when AIDS came along, it just intensified all of that.
You know, talking about the mid-'80s, there's all those gay murders that were happening in and around Sydney. The gay community knew about those murders and knew about all those people being beaten and bashed and thrown off cliffs at gay beats.
It had become a sport amongst young men. And we all knew people who had been bashed.
It was just like, like Steve got poofed and bashed. Like, it was almost a bit of conversation that was just part of our community.
So there was already this tone within the community that you were under siege anyway.
We had a real sense of community then because we used to stick together. You know, like it was, and we had to, it kind of felt like we had to be almost out of survival sometimes.
Which is one of the reasons that the thriving clubs and gay pubs, the few of them that there were, was such an intense experience because you were all you had. So there was an us and them attitude between the gay and lesbian and general society.
Dance parties are being accepted. I don't know whether we're being accepted. It's just that the straights want to come along and party with us these days. But, you know, after they've partied with us the next day, can easily just turn around and bash us in the streets.
But again, this is a community standing back and going, no.
The only way we could help was to go to the police and say that here we are, a group of people who are willing to be your eyes and ears on the street and help you in any way we can.
Dykes and Bikes are a group of ladies who are pretty strong of shoulder and they throw their leg over a powerful motorbike and they actually give a lot back to the community.
And there was a lot of talk about the police have to change. There is an ongoing legacy of violence towards gay men and lesbians that the police just turn a blind eye to. There were gay and lesbian officers appointed within the police service, leading to the thing that just still does my head in every time I see the police marching in Mardi Gras.
For the first time, officers in full uniform and on full pay will march in Sydney's gay and lesbian Mardi Gras parade.
How do you feel about the police in the Mardi Gras now?
I've reconciled to some extent.
Look, I've got mixed feelings. Police en masse are a bit scary still, even after 45 years or so.
It's like, your parade is illegal. We are bashing and arresting you. Your parade's really important. Can we be part? People's minds would have imploded if you would have told them they're going to ask to be in the parade. You just couldn't conceive it.
Should the cops be at Mardi Gras? Well, they were there in '78, so in a way, it's their night too. What do you reckon, voiceover guy?
I guess it's safe to say us queers have a pretty complicated relationship with the law.
I didn't know you were queer.
It's kept us down and hidden in the margins.
So much shit is put on us by society that we have really no choice but to be lonely and isolated sort of people.
But at the same time,
we've fought right back.
Maybe being deviant is part of our DNA.
We've disregarded the law and broken it.
We won't wait.
sex works now!
But at the same time,
we've worked hard to change it.
The debate in Tasmania, and that was only, particularly where I live, was only ever horrific.
but at the same time, I'm in Tasmania talking to Rodney Croom.
Well, Zoe, we're here at Salamanca Place to talk about what was and remains the biggest act of gay rights civil disobedience in Australian history.
Wow.
There were 130 arrests here at Salamanca Market at the end of 1988 in defence of a stall that we had calling for the decriminalisation of homosexuality. Back then, it was a criminal offence for two men to have sex, and the maximum penalty was 21 years in prison. And we set up a small stall to gather petition signatures. They said, we don't want that stall there, we don't want any homosexuals in our family market, and they brought in the police. And over 7 Saturday mornings, there were 130 arrests.
As a citizen of the Commonwealth of Australia, I do not believe that I have any need to leave Salamanca.
You refuse to leave this area. You are now under arrest for trespassing.
This was the demarcation line for the Salamanca market. So we had our stall inside the market, and anyone who was on this side of that line could be arrested.
So, illegal, legal,
That's
illegal,
right. Yeah.
legal. It's quite absurd, really, isn't it?
It symbolises all the arbitrary lines that queer people are told we can't cross. And that's what drove us to come back week after week. We couldn't accept that level of not just discrimination, but repression. The Hobart City Council gave in after 7 or 8 weeks because there were just so many people in defence of the stall. It took almost a decade for Tasmania to repeal those old laws. Parliament was resistant to change. There were big anti-gay rallies across the state where the crowds would go and they'd be shouting, you know, kill them, kill them.
I am 20, I am gay, and I'm proud.
I can't tell you how difficult it was. We had to take a case to the United Nations. We had to ask the federal government to intervene. We took a case to the High Court. And we travelled around the state and told our personal stories about why these laws needed to change. And all those things together finally added up to reform in 1997, after all of that campaigning.
1997, like that is so recent.
And now we have some of the most progressive LGBTIQA+ laws, not only in Australia, but in the world.
Incredible.
I think that's a message for queer people everywhere, that however difficult it is, however much history bears down on you with a weight of pain and trauma, you can change things for the better. If we can do it in Tasmania, it can be done anywhere.
What do you reckon, Magda?
What? How long she been there?
Whole time.
Ages.
Creepy.
Every story has to end somewhere.
Does it? I reckon we've got heaps more to go.